I can't believe they made us sit through that here on the Saturday night after a nice win on Friday. We get this stinker on a Saturday night against the best team in the NBA.
Real emphasis on stinker, buddy.
But it was a stinker. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers Postgame Show presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck, Devon Givens with you, Bree producing, all of you in the chat. We all had to watch this one together. Let's discuss it as we hang out with you. We'll give you our player of the game a little bit later. Talk about all of this as the Sixers fall 126-99, a 27-point defeat. It felt like 47 as you paid attention to the game. Derek, this was a tough one as they started off the game pretty well, and you're looking at it saying, all right, they might have some juice here tonight on the second night of a back-to-back. By the way, both teams on the second night of a back-to-back. Philadelphia, the only one that had to board a plane to attend the game and actually play the game. But here, man, once they got it going and started 30-30 after one, things started to change drastically for the 76ers.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, Tyrese came out and he had that personal 8-0 run and they took that 8-2 lead. And I thought the Sixers defense was pretty active early on and forcing Cleveland into some pretty tough attempts and, getting some deflections and collecting glass. You thought, maybe. And then about halfway through the first quarter, it's like, oh, one team is generating really good looks really easily. And Paul George is dribbling for 20 seconds and getting nowhere. I'm not sure this is sustainable. And it turns out it wasn't. And it's one thing to not be sustainable. It's another thing for it to turn into what it turned into in the second half, which was just completely not competitive at all. I thought the third quarter offense was a disaster. The defense was pretty bad for the entire second half. And it was a really poor showing. And it's, we sat here, and even if Joel Embiid played, and obviously second night of back-to-back, plan wasn't for him to play, even if he played and the Sixers were traveling coming into a really tough opponent, an opponent with the best record in the Eastern Conference, on the tail end of a back-to-back, traveling, yada, 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 you'd say, this is going to be tough for them to compete in. Even with all of those qualifiers, they disappointed me in a big way.
They disqualified themselves. All right. So I would start with this, and I know we already got an early super chat from Jake M centered around the head coach that we will get to at some point. I was blown away by the lack of process in that game. It was very much like run one dribble handoff.
It felt early season Sixers offense.
Run almost, I don't want to say almost exclusively isolation, but there was just a ton of isolation offense. And it wasn't even like it was just, hey, we're getting Maxey a good matchup ISO. We're getting Paul George a good matchup ISO. There's a little bit of that early in the game. Like some of Paul George's success came from getting a guy like Darius Garland on his hip, and then shooting over him is a different challenge than shooting over Evan Mobley, for example. But as the game wears on, you're giving the ball to guys like Ricky Council, and it's like, well, everybody is just kind of standing around and Ricky go create something. That is just not a path to consistently getting points. And I think the biggest thing that I had thought during this game is like, this is just a dumb basketball team and game, because so many of their turnovers and their giveaways and their mistakes came on plays and sequences where they just never had a chance to have a good play happen, right? Like one of them actually ended up being dug out, but you remember the 3/4 court pass from Kelly Oubre to Andre Drummond? I said to you in the middle of the game, I was like, that might be the dumbest KYP play I've seen all season. And then more of those came, like Caleb Martin, fresh off of the injury report.
Wild tonight.
He's just dribbling into traffic and throwing up crazy shots for most of the game. Like there's just no plan, no purpose. And when it's most of the guys on the roster and it's not an isolated problem, right? Like it's easy when if Kelly Oubre is going off script and doing stuff that has driven us nuts in the past, that becomes easy to just say, oh, well, that was a Kelly mistake, or this was a bad Kelly game. Well, the whole team played like that. And what I would say is I give Cleveland credit for, they didn't start all that well, but once the Sixers started sputtering, that was like they went 0 to 100 very quickly. and they turned the transition offense and the transition mistakes that the Sixers made into 3-point success. Like, that's a credit to them. But that's what you have to be prepared for when you go into Cleveland. You play a team that they were 24-4 going into the game, and these guys are treating it as it's like, oh yeah, whatever. It's another game against the Charlotte Hornets, I guess. And you looked, Derek at one point joked in the second quarter, he goes, this is a game where you might look up at halftime and they're down 18. And I think before Ricky Council hit that insane three, it was like 14.
Yeah.
And it very clearly could have been much worse. So I don't know how we're this deep into a season. It is almost Christmas. And without Joel Embiid, there is just no coherent plan other than Tyrese and Paul make a ton of shots.
Yeah.
Like, that's all they have.
For a half a quarter, when Tyrese was making every tough three-pointer, it looked like that might work. That is really tough to sustain.
No, it really is, man. And just sitting there watching that one, again, giving us that belief in the first 12 minutes, but really about the first 9 minutes where they were up by double digits, and then the Cleveland goes on their run. I believe, as I had the run there written down, Cleveland went on like a 14-2 run to break up that 10-point lead that the 76ers initially had. And right there, you're saying, all right, this team, they're going to lose this game tonight because they just don't have it. And as Derek pointed out, and Kyle, you reiterated, by just the over-dribbling. As Paul George, you said the offense, Tyrese Maxey, Paul George make shots. But when Tyrese Maxey was getting the basketball, it was quick decisions. Now, we know Paul George, oftentimes he takes a few dribbles to get himself going, to set himself up for whatever shot he's going to take or the pass that he makes. And in this case, it didn't look like Monday when he scored the 33. Not just the ball going through the basket, the things happening before the ball went through the basket. And it certainly didn't look like that last night. But again, we didn't mind it all that much because there were some things with a purpose. He was doing other things to help out. Jokingly, of course, with my Bet365 choices, 10.5 rebounds and assists. He should have easily gotten that if he was engaged in the game, but it didn't seem like he was engaged. No. It was almost as if he just let me go log these minutes to show that I can play on the back-to-back, but I'm not going to do much in this one. Or he realized pretty early that there was a reason why he was questionable all day until they actually gave him the go-ahead to play this basketball game, because he simply did not look good enough to go out there and play a 48-minute basketball game to be the number 2 or number 1, depending on how he had it going, where Tyrese Maxey certainly had a purpose every time he touched the basketball early on.
No, I mean, look, I said last night that I thought Paul played a good game. Even though he didn't shoot well, I reiterated that today before the game.
And agreed.
He did not play a good game today. There was absolutely nothing that he was really contributing outside of a couple deflections here or there. But like, he wasn't creating for himself. He wasn't creating for others. He didn't look like he had any burst on a second night of a back-to-back. He was just really struggling to get to any kind of a spot where he felt comfortable. And look, that's a very good Cleveland defense. Like, they're one of those teams that are, probably top 5, top 7 defensively, somewhere
and
in
they've
that mix.
I mean, they're much better as a team, like in the standings, all that this year. But they've been a very good two-way team for a long time.
Yep. And he struggled in a huge way. And this is what, look, and Paul has had moments where he has stepped up as that number 2 option and had some big nights. So I don't want to overreact too much, but this was a really bad game. And if you were going to have any chance, and look, I don't think they had much chance to win this game, but if you were going to even be competitive, you needed him to have a purpose, and he just did not for most of the night.
Yeah, and so friend of the show, Carter Rodriguez, popped in here from the Chase Down pod. I've been on him and Justin's show before, so wanted to shout out Carter. I would say part of what Cleveland does, right, is if you can beat their first level of defense or their first and second level of defense, they basically will always have a big back there, right? They'll always have, whether it's Mobley or Allen, somebody who can come in and protect from the weak side and force you into either a tough shot at the rim or to kick it out, and then they're good at recovering and rotating and getting out to their spots. And I think that really highlighted the issues that we've talked about for Paul George in the explosiveness department, right? Because I think he did okay in terms of getting somebody on his hip and maybe giving himself a driving lane, which we've seen a lot this year. But when you need to then beat somebody at the summit and get around someone, that's where the lack of the explosion, I think, really comes in, because he can still make some kick out passes. He can make a drop off here and there. But when there's a guy there and everyone else is flying around and getting into their spots and there's no real opening for you, you have to create the opening, or the team in some way has to manufacture that. So I think my disappointment with that is, one, on Paul, right? You want to see him play better, be able to get by guys more, all that. But again, going back to the offensive structure, you know, coming into the game how Cleveland is set up and how they play. You know they're going to take away the rim for someone like Paul George, or for a lot of guys. Like even Maxey, who had a great shooting performance, he had some moves tonight where he looks like he has space, and that just evaporates in the span of, second and a half, 2 seconds. And they just seem completely unprepared for that to be the case, right? Like, that's not, you don't beat a defense like that by playing ISO ball. And it's like, oh, I beat my man. There's always going to be help behind there. They will get the low man there. They will get the help side defense there. So to end up in that spot where it's just this stagnant, structureless, no motion type of offense, it's just baffling to me. It's a misunderstanding of, frankly, what they require anyway, right? Where they don't have a ton of shot creators. They have Maxey, who can struggle without Joel. We've talked a lot about that this year. We know what Paul's limitations are at this point. And then you're asking guys like Caleb Martin, Kyle Lowry, Eric Gordon, go on down the line, that either are too old, shouldn't have the ball in their hands because they're not great ball handlers, or they're not good enough shooters so teams can sag off of them.
Not great decision makers, or a combination of all four.
Right. So on the one hand, you would look at the coaching staff and say, I get it. You're boxed in to a certain degree, but that's not an excuse to basically just throw up your hands and say, well, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to move anyone. We're not going to try to set pin downs. We're not going to try to get Paul George some manufactured open threes on catch and shoot stuff. It's just like, I mean,
kind of go back to last night where you had the Charlotte Hornets, who are missing 4 of their starters against a 76ers team that had all 3 of their all-stars out there on the floor. And while they were down by 23 points, I believe it was, they came back and cut it to as much as 4. They didn't give up. We talked about it, Derek, that they did not quit. They did not give up. And whatever it was that Charles Lee was saying to them, number one, and then the offenses they were designing for those guys to go out there and run. We talk about it jokingly, of course, about Isaiah Wong, the Rumpf Classic MVP, but Isaiah Wong getting plays called. Cody Martin doing some things out there as well. Other players that you look at them across from the 76ers, and of course we say the final score should look like this, 126-99, because that's the type of effort that you would think that they would just demoralize you and take it away from you, where you're just like, all right, gut punch, we can't fight back anymore. This game's over. But no, that's not what the Charlotte Hornets did. And the 76ers are, even without Joel Embiid, you still have those 2 on the floor. They're supposed to be so much better, with a much better head coach and coaching staff, to have them ready, to give them some things to run where the actions don't look crazy, where we're starting to sit there saying, I can't, guys, we have a segment on our show called WTF of the Night. I have to tell you that the guys...
You got a laundry list.
The guys said WTF about 5 times tonight.
To be clear,
they were Sixers related.
I do not say WTF out loud. There are other words used in place of that.
Well, I don't think we're on television, so you might be good. But that said, we said it multiple times last night because of that. And it was mostly on the offensive side of the floor, where it was just that. What the hell was that?
Yeah.
And what the hell was that offense tonight?
No, and look, I know Neil's in the chat being like, well, you're never going to win when your star's out. Okay, first of all, they've had seasons in the past where they have been able to, like with the one Harden year, I think they had a winning record without Joel. But even still, all right, look, I get you're not going to win often without Joel. What is one game that they have stolen this year? Just one.
You just want them to be competitive.
They can't
that's all.
Maybe
I'm asking
Orlando,
for.
maybe the one Orlando win, but like you're a third of the way through the season. You haven't stolen one
And that's
win.
an Orlando team, by the way, missing Paolo Banchero, who's an all-star and #1 overall pick.
Outside of that, you're beating Detroit and Indy and Charlotte. And is there another good team in there they've beaten that I've missed? Like they
beat
not
Brooklyn.
They're not finding ways to manufacture wins at all.
Charlotte, right
Brooklyn,
there,
you're right.
so.
There was that. They're not finding ways to manufacture wins, and this was supposed to be a team from Drummond as a replacement level center, a good backup center, so to speak. He was awful today. I'm sure we'll get to that. To Nick Nurse, to Paul George, they were supposed to find ways to be competitive without Joel, so you didn't have to overplay him, and they just can't.
Hold on, I want us all to be able to laugh today because this was such a crappy game.
Yeah.
Peter in the chat, I believe, got auto-corrected where he was trying to say Adem Bona, and it got corrected to Adam Bonus.
I will say that was a very charitable autocorrect given what could have happened.
I think canonically for me, he's now Adam Bonus.
Adam Bonus.
That's my new Adembona alter ego.
No more bonus.
How about when he plays well, he's Adembona, and when he plays
Adam
poorly,
Bonus.
he's
Adam Bonus.
Adam Bonus.
How did he do tonight?
Or maybe we could flip it around. Adam Bonus sounds like you're,
Yeah.
I
really
had
having
a
good
phone
time.
way back in the day that kept autocorrecting Iggy to Piggy, and it drove me insane.
Adam Bonus.
Anyway, I'm sorry for Peter. To be clear, I'm not laughing at you. I think that was very funny.
We needed
And
it.
The
Yeah.
point of
We needed that.
the point of wanting to play Adem a little bit more, I think, had some merit tonight because
The other
The
two
bigs
guys were,
were-
yeah.
It was brutal.
brutal.
Yeah, it was
Brutal.
Andre was just bad, and Yabu's overmatched in this game.
Yeah, let's get to our first super chat because it was pretty early from Jake. And Jake says, Nick Nurse putting Maxey back in the game, fresh off a strained hammy, down 25 to hurt his shooting percentages for 2 minutes was awesome.
Okay, look,
Dr. DHO is clueless.
Dr. DH.
so I will
The
say
nicknames are coming fast and furious tonight.
I broadly agree with that.
No, but Derek,
But
when we look
Tyrese
up,
Maxey hasn't been on the injury report for the hamstring strain in a month.
right, the
He's
hammy
not
part.
fresh off a hamstring
but when they were
strain.
down, we looked up and 7 minutes into the fourth quarter, they already
He
being
shouldn't
blown
have been
out.
brought
We're
back.
like, I
100
looked up at the guys. I'm like, he's back in the game.
Like I
And
said,
Paul
You
George,
said it.
which
You were-
that was
Paul
the
George
bigger one
and
for me.
Tyrese Maxey?
The
Yeah.
guy's questionable coming into the game. He's suffered 2 different injuries. You're throwing him back out there down like 27 points. What the hell are you doing? What game are you watching? And that's after he already basically waved the white flag,
Yes.
bringing in
Doughton.
fucking Jeff Doughton. Sorry,
Adam Bonus.
We're not on TV, so I could. But you already are basically out there with the giant white flag that you're waving, and then it's like, oh, we cut the lead to 26.
So here's-
time to bring the guys back in.
Get Bonus off the floor, man. Get
No
him
more
off.
Adam Bonus.
we've got Pete, Nate, and Adam Bonus. That's great.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't remember what I was going to say. It doesn't matter. There's no great analysis to be had for this game anyway. I don't remember.
the hammy part. All right, he
Yeah,
has.
I mean, look, I agree with everything else 100%. I
Except
will
for the
say though,
hammy.
like maybe the Doughton thing isn't waving the white flag. Maybe it's he's finally
Just
catching
try
up to where
something.
Kyle Lowry is
Yeah.
at the stage of his career. So
I
don't
don't know. It
Yeah.
just
Yeah, a lot of ISO basketball tonight because
I mean, 100%.
there were no actions ran there tonight.
And you can go back, like Kyle and I.
Dr. DHO,
Yes.
exactly what it was.
We were
out there
complaining
on the
about
floor.
this like the first couple of weeks when Joel was out.
mhm.
We were complaining about this almost every show. It's like one action, one DHO, one flip, one ball screen, and then it's just that didn't work. Let's go ISO. And
It's
today
a
was
much
very-
less appealing version of the Harlem Globetrotters offense where they run the weave and sweet Georgia Brown is playing over the loudspeaker. It's, and also those games are rigged for the
Yeah.
Globetrotters. So
Like-
that's a little bit different.
The
on top
Celtics
of
can
that.
get away with that when they have 5 guys who can take you off the dribble
Yeah.
and 5 guys who can shoot. You have 1 guy who can take you off the dribble and like 1.5 guys who can shoot.
I was
going
going to say
really
2
work the
guys
same.
who can shoot, but
Well,
And-
Paul's really up and,
And
down.
just add some context to it, right? Just when you look at the stats, and sometimes stats can lie, but this is true because this is exactly what was happening. The 76ers had 13 assists tonight on 34 makes. The Cleveland Cavaliers on the other side, where the ball was popping, man. It was swinging around the perimeter, and they were finding their guys. 31 assists on 48 made baskets for the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight. That's why they are 25-4, the best record in the NBA with their defense. And their offense, of course, with 2 all-star guards and an emerging star in Evan Mobley for what he does there in the front court. They shared the basketball. Even when their reserves
he lived up to
come
his
in.
end of the parlay. I'll tell you
Yes,
that.
he did.
22, 13, and 7 tonight for
Yeah,
Mobley.
he had 22 and 7 was enough right
What was
there
that
to reach
PG parlay?
10.5. He had
I think
5.
he hit 5 or 6, I think.
Yeah, thanks for the second consecutive night for Paul George. But no, 31 assists. And not just the starters. The reserves come in. You see the ball still snapping. Ty Jerome had 4 assists, 2 for George Niang, who we know he catches the ball and he's firing it up. 2 assists. You had 1 from Jalen Tyson late and 7 for Mobley as the power forward. 5 for Donovan Mitchell, who had a quiet night with 19. 4.
He was cooking early, too.
Exactly. 4 for Darius Garland and 2 for Dean Wade, 2 for Jared Allen, sharing the basketball tonight. That's why they are who they are. And that's why the 76ers tonight, we did not see that. And a lot of times we talk about the 76ers sharing the basketball. That was not the case tonight as the Sixers fall 126-99. We got a lot more to talk about, some more Super Chats, player of the game. We'll get to that. That was the one good thing out of this game this evening. We'll discuss it all as we hang out with you on a Saturday night. Tough Saturday night. Sixers fall by 27, 126-99 to the Cleveland Cavaliers. We're discussing it all right here on the PHLY Sixers Postgame Show presented by Bet365.
Well, I'm sure some of you can hear it in my voice right now. There was a little too much choosing chill.
This is where you finally admit it wasn't
in the
bad
Newbeck
pizza.
household. Yeah, I had too much bad pizza last night. I don't know what to tell you. But it's always a good thing to choose chill, right? We talk about our friends at Coors Light here all the time and the mentality behind choose chill, right? Which is we look at a game like today, Sixers get smoked, everyone's upset, and then a perfect autocorrect happens in the chat, and we can laugh about the name Adam Bonus that was made up by a correction by technology, and then we can all choose chill together and enjoy an ice-cold Coors Light. Coors Light, you know you're getting an ice-cold beer because the mountains turn blue on the bottles and cans right as they hit that perfect temperature. There were some blue mountains in and around my household last night because the refrigerator was overflowing, so we had to move some to the outside winter storage department. That's always clutch on the East Coast in the wintertime. And I want you guys to remember around the stressful holiday season, you can always choose chill no matter what's going on in your life, no matter how crazy your family Christmas, your in-law Christmas might go. You can always enjoy a cold layered, cold filtered, cold packaged can or bottle of mountain cold refreshment. So when you choose to rise above it all, choose chill, choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
We also want to tell you about Rite Aid because they want to help protect you from pneumonia. Adults aged 50 and older are now eligible for the vaccine. It was previously for people ages 65 and older, but the CDC lowered the age recommendation to 50 plus. Millions of people get pneumonia every year. It's a respiratory illness, and fall and winter are a time when the germs that cause respiratory disease typically spread more in the community. So now is the time to get vaccinated and help yourself stay healthy. Some people who get pneumonia have mild symptoms, but for others, they experience serious complications. The vaccine is one of the best ways to help keep yourself healthy, and it's usually done at no cost with insurance. Getting vaccinated is easy. Just walk into your local Rite Aid or schedule online at riteaid.com. If you're unsure of what vaccines you may need, just ask a pharmacist for a personal recommendation. Stop by your local Rite Aid today.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Postgame Show presented by Bet365. Let's jump to our player of the game tonight for the work that he did. Got to do it. Tyrese Maxey.
A nice deck chair on the Sixers Titanic tonight.
Yeah, 27 points, made 5 threes on 10 attempts. Only 1 turnover with as much as he had to handle the basketball. Only coughed it up 1 time. 3 assists because his teammates didn't make shots when he did pass it to them. And he was our player of the game for tonight. He got off to a really good start, knocking down, 3 threes pretty quickly for Nick Nurse's team. And that's what really jump-started the offense, got things going, and gave them that 10-point lead, helped them get that 10-point lead early on against this Cavaliers defense. And he, once again, just had a solid night, but he didn't have one of those 40-point nights to lead them to a victory, to steal a game, as Derek talked about. He needed a lot of help. He didn't get it. He gave you 27. If the game was closer, probably would have given you a little bit more, but wave the white flag, bring him back in with 7 minutes to go for 2 minutes, sit him back down. The 27. Tyrese looked fine.
It does look like he's finally getting some shooting feel back. And one of the things that I've really liked seeing from him recently is the aggression as a transition shooter has been there a lot over the last, let's say, week and a half, maybe even 2 weeks, where he gets one early one to go down, and then he's like, he's trying to get that snowball rolling down the hill. And that wasn't necessarily always there. I felt like we were seeing a lot of the tougher step back threes, and he hit a good amount of those tonight. But I'm liking what I'm seeing from him when he's getting out on the break, getting into early offense. If he sees a dropping defender right now, a guy who's more worried about protecting the rim, he's had a really good feel for how much space he's had, and he started to make a lot more of those shots. And we always say it with good shooters, it really only takes one, right? When you get that belief in your head, like, oh, that felt good coming out of my hands, that quickly turns into 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 made threes. And it's really seems to be as simple for him as if they can just get him going early, that's all it has really taken, right? When he gets into a game in the first 6 minutes or so, instead of trying to wait and pick his spots and play setup guy for everybody else, I think that's been the key for him recently.
Yeah, for the 6 minutes tonight where I wasn't cranky and miserable, it was almost all because of Tyrese Maxey, and almost by default for that, he gets player of the game.
Yeah, he was fun tonight.
But to Kyle's point, like it is huge that he is getting confidence back in that jumper. He was so off for so much of this season, and it didn't, like, part of it, yes, obviously Joe gets some better looks, but he missed so many shots that we had just become accustomed to him making. Some of them were tough shots, of course, but that is what made Tyrese Maxey a difference-making player. That and the speed and the unguardability of those two combined with that big 7-foot force of nature. So for him to finally look like he's getting that back at a time when Joel is finally starting to look like he might be playing regularly again, knock on wood, that would be a huge step towards turning this awful, awful start to the season around. And in a game where there was almost nothing to have fun watching, Tyrese Maxey provided just a little bit of that.
And him, of course, being who he is, he feels good. He knows the ball goes through the hoop. He feels good, as you guys talked about. But you can also see it just watching it from the television where he's stepping into these threes. And when he's releasing it, oftentimes we would say it ourselves, oh, I'm not worried about. When Jared McCain, for example, started to really get into a real good groove and had people really trusting his shot, you would say, I want him shooting because every time he lets the shot go, it looks really good coming off his fingertips. You think it's going in every time. For a while there with Maxey, you could tell right away, oh, that one's not going in because it doesn't seem like the confident type of Maxey shot. But over these last few games, over the course of the week, I don't know if it was the time off because of the NBA Cup, spaced out the games, get some extra work in, since we know he likes to work so hard. You can see it even tonight where he was stepping into, I think it was his fourth one. He came down the floor. It was a secondary break. He slowed down. Yep. No one was near him. Top of the key, pulled this one, and he drilled it. And you could see it. Again, the rotation on the ball was good, coming off of his fingertips, and he knocked that one down. So 5 tonight. Of course, they could have used all 10 from him to fall to keep this game a little bit closer, but he did all he could this evening. That was our player of the game, Tyrese Maxey. Player of the game presented by no one here on the show, as always. So only 3 players in double figures tonight. Paul George with 11, Tyrese Maxey with the 27, player of the game. Ricky Council with the other double-digit scoring night. He had 11 as well. Kelly Oubre, 9. Missed 3 free throws, though.
Jeff Doughton was doing his best.
He tried. He tried.
He was getting them up. And
he tried.
He was pretty efficient. I think he was like 4 for 5, something like that.
Yeah.
4 for 5?
He was so good that Nick Nurse decided to bring Paul George and Tyrese Maxey back in the game because they cut it to 26. But only 3 players in double figures to the Cavs, 6 tonight. And Ricky, again, he does some good things where this 11, what he did last night, they lost. He wasn't going to be the difference in winning this game tonight. But it was another decent enough performance outside of the, hey, Ricky, there's that Ricky Council moment of the night where it's not the good one, but shaking your head because of what Ricky did. Maybe this is once again something that will give the coaching staff a little bit of trust in him to put him out there on the floor in some of these other games. Most notably coming up on Monday against the San Antonio Spurs.
Well, I think if there's one thing that might drive Ricky Council's minutes going forward, it might be Caleb Martin and how well he plays or if he can play.
We are like mind melded right now because that was my exact thought. I mean, I didn't even think Ricky played all that
No,
well.
and
I just
like Devon brought up 2 other people in double figures. Well, those 2 people shot like 31% from the field. So
yeah. It's but yes, so I think it's more about Caleb has just not been good. And look, at beginning of the season, I could still see, and you still see now, good defensive player.
Yes.
Like he's can be part of a high level defense, but the offense has just been a train wreck. Either he's missing threes or he's not taking threes, or then he gets psyched out and decides, well, I'm going to dribble into 7 people. And, well, that's not possible. Maybe 7 people with
including
his
teammates.
Yeah. Not 7 Cavs, obviously, but just dribbling into a crowd of people. And nothing good is going to come from that. Derek called it early. Caleb hit the one kind of circus shot. And he's like, oh, that's going to teach him the wrong thing for the rest of the night. And lo and behold, like a possession later, he takes some goofy one-handed runner in the middle of the lane, kind of falling away from the basket. I think while he has been a victim of trying to scale up on a shorthanded team, we're past the point where that should be an excuse, especially because he's had a reputation as, he's a connective, intelligent role player. It's why he went to Miami and had success, right? He buys into their system. He does the little things. He does some playmaking. He hits the occasional 3 and plays within himself. Well, I don't see a lot of playing within himself right now. So while Ricky has his warts, and a lot of them are similar to Caleb's in the decision-making department, he's at least given them like some real athleticism and some real transition juice and some other things. So, yeah, I mean, I think at this point that should probably be a real conversation, especially because KJ has generally kind of separated from that pack and looks like he's going to be, if not a nightly starter, at least someone who's in the mix.
Although he really didn't play a whole lot in the second half, and I'm not really sure why.
Same last night.
Yeah.
Didn't play a lot in the second half. How much do you think of the injury for Caleb Martin? Because the outside shot, yes, but the other stuff, no.
Yeah.
It shouldn't. It
shouldn't. I don't think shoulder injuries should impact your decision making. I don't think whatever is connected to the shoulder bone. But yeah, no, it's look, I do think a little bit when you start second guess that shot, you then get forced into some things that you probably wouldn't do otherwise. But they don't need him to try to create off the dribble the way he's trying to create off the dribble. And some of these drives and spin moves and layups, it's like, what is even going through your head? You're supposed to be one of the veterans that you can count on. It is, he's been very frustrating. And the shot is huge. Like, if he could just stand in the corner, make a shot, play good defense, and every now and then attack a closeout, he has done that in the past. That's why we all sat here and said, all right, that's a good signing, a good role player at a good price. And somehow everything just seems to fall apart with this team right now. And his shot seems like it caused a cascading effect where now he's, second guesses stuff, tries to do too much to compensate for it. I think he feels the pressure of wanting to contribute while he's out on the floor. It's a very tough watch right now.
I have a question for you guys that I keep seeing a lot of it in the chat. I know it was a discussion in our Discord as well. The decision for Joel to play last night versus tonight. I guess, where are you guys at on that?
I think part of it had to do with not having him travel. If he's going to be on the West Coast trip, not having him travel, seeing those 3 play together, period, getting that opportunity. Making playing a bad team where you can go out there and maybe work on some things to right yourself and right the team, right the trio overall, to put together some minutes to work on some things against a bad basketball team. So I think that played into it. And then the fact that think that because he didn't play tonight and they are going to play Monday at home before the trip, that he will most likely play on Monday and then play. And then look, if he would have played tonight, it still would have been a Sunday off before he played against San Antonio on Monday, and then Wednesday play against the Boston Celtics on Christmas Day. I think that, I see the logic. I saw it last night. I had no problem with it. I also felt like they would compete a little bit more, especially with the performance that we saw from both George and Maxey on Monday. Charlotte is a different opponent. I'm not saying that. It's just what you saw from the two of them against Charlotte, where maybe they had some juice together that they were working on that would carry over to this game and then get the necessary help from the rest of the guys that are out there.
I've seen this team loses to so many bad teams. I'm not taking even a Charlotte team without LaMelo and Brandon Miller. I'm not taking anyone for granted.
I would agree
You
with
are
that.
at a point where you have to bank some wins. Like you were 3-14 2 weeks ago. You're sitting here miraculously, just a couple games out of a play-in spot. You have got to bank some wins. And look, I know everyone, I think there's two reasons people were coming at Embiid playing tonight instead of last night. One of them, to try to compete for 2 wins. I get that. But I think if you ask me realistically, if you had to rank out the possibilities, 2-0 over the stretch, 1-1 or 0-1, or 1-1 or 0-2. With Embiid sitting out last night, playing tonight, I think the most likely scenario is 1-1, which is where you ended up anyway. Second most likely scenario, I think 0-2 was more likely than 2-0. So bank that first win, get at least feeling a little bit good about yourselves, get a win in the standings. I understand it, but I think, like I said, going back, I think people wanted to, you're trying to get that second win or trying to beat a good team so you feel better about yourself. There will be plenty of times to play good teams throughout the remaining, however, 2/3 of the season. You don't have to try to force that in now. Get the win and then move on from there. I understand. I think there's an argument either way.
Yeah.
I want to bank the win, though.
Yeah.
Andre says they beat Charlotte without Embiid. What is he talking about? Well, they beat Charlotte when Paul George played really well. You know who did not play well last night with Joel Embiid?
Paul George.
At least Paul George. He was, and he didn't play well tonight either. He did not play well as an offensive, workhorse guy who can be one of your co-leads of the team. And I think what people are not factoring into the equation here is if Joel doesn't play last night and they schedule him to play today, Paul George is probably not playing tonight. I would bet you good money that he would have sat out tonight's game. Now, you can say Paul George played poorly tonight, so maybe that would have been good. But when you look at the rest of the role players and who would have had to step up, you're then asking one of, Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, Ricky Council, one of these guys, one of them would have had to play way above expectations. And the other guys would have had to hold a pretty decent floor themselves. And so you end up in a scenario where you very well could have gone 0-2. In fact, I probably would have bet on them going 0-2 simply because even though Charlotte is bad and even though they have beaten them several times before last night, it's very hard to beat a team 4 consecutive times in any season. Season sweeps don't happen a lot for a reason. So I get why they did it. I understand why people are mad about it. I come back to Joel should be on the floor as soon as he can be back out there, right? Because this is less for me about the individual game and the win and all that than he needs to be building up as many reps with these guys as possible. Get those in, as Devon said, work on some of the things, work on plays with guys. He talked last night at his locker about, the chemistry isn't there with Paul George. The only way you're going to get that is if they play more games and they work on more stuff together. So while I get the angle that people are coming from, we all do. All of us, no one's sitting here dismissing the idea of Joel playing tonight versus last night outright. It's not a bit good enough contention for me to really care or get angry about.
And I'll add this to it because, Dre asking that question, Dre is not wrong to ask the question, as you guys just pointed out. But here's the other thing too, Dre and everybody else, is that they have 9 wins. They got the 9th one last night. So, Derek, to your point, you need to stack wins. Also, they are a 9-win team. There's no guarantee that no matter who's in their uniform on the floor, that they're going to beat the opposition. They have lost to Toronto.
Pistons,
They have lost to
Toronto,
Detroit.
Yeah.
They have lost to all of these basketball teams.
You don't
So
get to take anybody
you
for
don't
granted.
No, you're not good enough. In years past, we can say, yeah, they're good enough. They're going to go out there and beat this basketball team.
Yeah.
This season,
And
through the
last
27
night, by the way,
games,
even with Joe, was a single-digit game in the
26
fourth quarter.
yes,
Yeah.
through these 26 games, they are not good enough. So, sure, you want to see him we want to see him every night. And number one, they've already told us that he's not playing back-to-backs. All right, so you don't play him against Charlotte. And sure, I'm sure even Bet365, the odds makers would be like, yeah, the Sixers should win by 6 points, especially with the other guys out. We've seen it so many times in the NBA, and especially this season with this particular basketball team, that they are not good enough to just assume like we did early in the year when they started off slow and we like, they got this one tonight. They'll get on track. They'll be fine. You assume, and then they go out there and lose the game. And then we're talking about a different angle of why they lost the basketball game and why he is playing or not playing. They are not good enough, Dre. So if they choose to stack that W last night against Charlotte, so be it. They have 9 wins. Guess how many games came? 4 against the Charlotte Hornets. 4 against the Charlotte Hornets.
Almost half of their wins.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Dre, they have to just stack the wins. They're going to play Cleveland again. They'll play these good teams, as Kyle talked about, and we'll see if they beat them when he and Paul George are out there on the floor with Tyrese Maxey together to see if they can actually get it done. So I agree with you guys that you have to do it. I understand the argument, Dre, of play tonight versus last night. But if they would have lost last night to the Charlotte Hornets, you know what we'd be talking about? Why didn't he play last night to pick up that win? And oh, by the way, Paul George stunk would be the headline of last night for the conversation. So it's going to go either way. And they still have they still have a lot of basketball left to play. We just don't know what version is going to be on the floor. And that's why you can't assume that they're going to beat a Charlotte Hornet team without Joel Embiid on the floor.
Yeah, and by the way, if you lose that game against Charlotte, even if you had Joe coming back, this was going to be a really tough spot to be in. The travel road back-to-back is just a really tough spot.
And since they're going to be on the road for, a week and a half?
Yeah.
He doesn't have to take this trip. Take the trip that really matters, which is this West Coast trip, to see if he can get a couple of games in him. They're not back-to-backs. Get a couple of those games on the road and see where we go from there. All right, let's get this quick break in. And when we come back, we'll kind of wrap things up here. We got into a lot. This game was bad. It was awful. It stunk. But we're here to talk about it with you on the Saturday night. It was brutal. 126-99. We're discussing it right here on the PHLY Sixers Postgame Show presented by Bet365.
All right, guys, we're going to tell you about TrueMark because we all know how hard it is to win without proper coaching. All of you in the chat right now probably have some thoughts on that subject, but we're going to go in a different direction. If you've got kids, TrueMark has the ultimate playbook for teaching financial responsibility with a free Greenlight account. The Greenlight app is changing the game, helping kids and teens learn how to earn, save, and spend wisely. They can set up savings goals, track their spending, and even get an allowance, all right there in the Greenlight app. And here's the really cool part. Each kid gets their own debit card so they can make purchases and learn real-world money skills while you stay in control from your phone. You get peace of mind, and they get the freedom to make smart decisions with their money. It's like coaching your kid through their very own financial game. And for TrueMark financial members, it's free. With the holidays right around the corner, legitimately right around the corner, now is the perfect time to introduce your kids to Greenlight. Get signed up today. Visit TrueMark.com/Greenlight for more information.
All right, and I'll tell you about our presenting sponsor for our postgame show here tonight. That is our good friends from Bet365. Evan Mobley did things right tonight. Paul George, you're on probation because after 2 consecutive games of some easy ones that we thought that you could hit on, did not. But always have fun betting on Bet365, of course, responsibly. And as we get ready for the NFL schedule tomorrow, which actually started today with the Saturday games, 2 good games on Saturday and a full slate tomorrow, of course, on Monday as well. Philadelphia taking on the Washington football squad. And if you're feeling good about, hey, the running back's going for a record, yes, he is. He's going to get the ball. He did not have the biggest game in the last win for the Philadelphia squad. So does he get the rock quite a bit tomorrow? Or the wide receiver, where they went out there and got a corner, Washington did, thinking that they're going to slow down number 11. Maybe that's not the case, and you feel like those two in particular are going to have big afternoons. You sign up. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 using code PHLY365 to sign up. Deposit $10, place a bet for $5 in bonus bets. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. And again, for those early payouts for all across the 4 major sports teams in general. So make sure you go download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Whatever the moment's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers postgame show presented by our very own Bet365. Let's get to the super chats that we do have waiting here. Skunk Riley. Kyle, you want to go ahead with the...
Skunk with a
Skunk
Sixers haiku.
Gave us 2 last night.
Well, Skunk, you inspired a whole Discord channel for us. So Skunk Riley says some sad haiku before I think fly back to Philly for
Coming back
Christmas.
home. Yeah.
I am disgusted, as Florida Evans said, damn, damn, damn.
Not good times right now, man. Not tonight, at least. Good times last night.
Does that make it a 5?
Depending on the pronunciation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I said it like a 3-syllable.
Damn, damn, damn. How she says it on the good times. Classic scene, of course, from Flo on Good Times. Thanks, Skunk. As always, 2 last night, 1 tonight. We appreciate it. Keep the haikus coming.
I don't know if Skunk is on the Discord, but I feel like you've got to jump on the Discord. I think you'd really enjoy that channel. We have an entire channel dedicated to haikus.
All right, let's keep it going.
Which Devon is a huge. I mean, he drops haikus all the time.
All the time, man. I keep it active in there. Bernard McCoy checking in with the super chat. Speaking of Tyrese Maxey, he is my guy, but he is now shooting 81% from the free throw line and is probably the worst shooter from 2-point range right now. Needs better coaching on his mid-range.
Well, you're to some extent you're preaching to the choir on the mid-range stuff because we've talked about that quite a bit on the show. I would say calling him the worst shooter from 2-point range right now, little bit of an exaggeration, right? And I do think that I've seen signs of progress there. He's at least looking to get to his mid-range more and tap into that a little bit more. So while we can say I was concerned with that for much of this season so far, I do think I'm seeing some of what I was kind of asking for earlier on.
His numbers, and I'm trying to pull them up real quickly, but as of like 2 weeks ago, maybe his 2-point numbers were way down, and his percentage at the rim was like 10% lower than it was last year. And we talked about this a little bit in one of our other shows, where when you become predictable and where that threat of the pass isn't there, and also when your big man isn't there to give you an outlet valve, it just allows him to load up, and those attempts are much, much, much more difficult because of that. I do agree that a mid-range is a way to sort of counteract that and give them just something where they can't cheat as much at the rim. I do think he's getting marginally better at it, but certainly you would like to see a little bit of improvement there as well.
All right. Holy Cannoli checking in on the super chat. What do you think they will do at the trade deadline? Big move, little one. What do you think is most likely to get? Who is most likely?
It's a great question because I don't think they know right now, frankly.
I don't think you can know until you get closer and you know what the record is and what the realistic outcomes are.
I would say this upcoming stretch is going to be very telling, right? Like if you play well and beat San Antonio, I think the bigger litmus test, obviously, is the Boston Celtics on Christmas. If you're at as close to full strength as you're going to get with Jared out, but if Joel plays and the other 2 stars play, and you obviously would prefer a win, but if you at least look good and are competitive and play well against Boston, and you start putting some good tape on the board against good teams, that will change some things. But like right now, how many games could we point to as like, well, that was a meaningful game against a good opponent, right? Is there one? Because even like you brought up the Orlando games, and they were good in those 2 where they played the back-to-back games in Philly. But that was also a version of the Sixers team that was like, it's Jared McCain leading everything. Joel's out. It's like that tells us very little.
Or close games?
Just like something that says this is a serious team.
Houston, they played well against. We can go all the way back to Phoenix.
But what I'm saying, like, that's not the version of the team. That version of the team is like, it doesn't mean it. You're not going to win with the guys they had out there that night. So it's like Joel needs to stay on the floor. Paul needs to stay on the floor. Tyrese needs to stay on the floor. And they got to start winning games and looking good in a hurry. Or I don't know how you're going to be able to justify a win now move. It's just like at a certain point, you're out of runway.
Yeah. No, it has to be someone that you have as part. And we talked about this the other day at Reading Terminal. It has to be somebody who is part of your long-term plan. You see a multi-year role on this team, and hopefully someone who would retain value for at least a little bit of that. So if things do go completely sideways, you can pivot off of it and recoup some or all of the assets you spent. That's why someone like Herb Jones, who's under contract for 2 more years, is so intriguing, because he's not, nothing's going to really change to have him drop value. Someone like Santi, who we're talking about, he is up for a new contract, so that might limit that a little bit.
I had a couple small things. I think we're probably about wrapped up, right? This is a bigger thing, but we basically already knew this. Apparently, Jared McCain on his YouTube tonight, which was posted in the middle of the game or like near the start of the game. I know that when you get a repair, what the timeline is, but I think he outright said he's out for the season on his YouTube. So,
which again, if you've been watching,
Jared McCain, he's out for the season.
If you've been watching the show, you would have known that was probably coming. But
we've gone through this, but hearing it from Jared when the team is using words like indefinitely and all that, that's worth noting. Somebody brought up in the chat, I know Derek responded to it. Completely different sport, but Ricky Henderson passing away today was just something I wanted to. He was a one-of-one athlete in like 2 or 3 different ways, right? The separation he created at the top of the stolen bases chart is outrageous to look at. He led
the league like 7 years in his career.
And it was always
over,
and he played like 25 seasons, which
always
is just
over 100. Nowadays, they've changed the rules now, but before they changed the rules, you're like 40 stolen bases to lead the league. That's nothing.
He's incredible.
Ricky Henderson, Vince Coleman, all these. Come on, man.
Isn't he like the all-time leader in runs in scoring?
I believe so. So I mean, because
he was great at getting on base too. Like he could work a count.
The gap between him and Lou Brock, 1-2 in stolen bases, is as big as the gap between Lou Brock and like Juan Pierre, who's like 18th. I actually think it might be bigger. I think it's like him and the 19th place guy. Like that is how good he was at that singular thing. And oh, by the way, as a leadoff guy, he could hit for power. And, he, like you said, scored tons of runs. Like on top of that, just a very distinct, unique personality, right? Like all the third person stuff. So shout out to Ricky Henderson. Obviously, condolences to his loved ones. And
way too young. What was he, like 65, right?
Something like that. Mid-60s. So very unfortunate.
Yep. Tough news. And it was great that we did get a chance to see him throw, his daughter throw the first pitch out to him before the Oakland A's decide that they are now moving to Las Vegas. So,
and also it's weirdly fitting in a way that he leaves us and they're still in Oakland. So it's like he never lived in a world where they were the Las Vegas A's or anything else.
Yeah, he was the man. He was absolutely the man.
The best.
The absolute best. All right, that'll do it for us here tonight, folks. We appreciate you hanging out with us all week from the Reading Terminal with the guys in Bree. Yesterday, of course, with our pre- and post-game show last night for the Charlotte Hornets, and tonight as well. We've done a lot of basketball in the first 26 games of the season. It has not been great, but we appreciate you hanging out with us. And we want to say thank you, as always, tonight with the world-famous roll call for the final time this week.
Darkness, I'm going to warn you right now. I don't have it in. I think my voice would crack like a prepubescent teenager if I tried to do the Dave Chappelle imitation of Rick James. So shout out to my guy Darkness, guy or gal. We don't actually know.
Do you say like turn the lights down really quietly now?
Turn the lights down. Yeah. All right, but goodbye and thank you to my girl Winona, to Money Mar, to Cannoli, to I Gavini, to Kyle Wright, Prophet One.
What up, Prophet?
X-Men. Is that Danelle Langford?
What up, X?
What up? What's up to our guy Al, the 2-minute warning?
What up, Al?
Jeannie.
Hey, Jeannie.
I think I saw Val in here earlier, perhaps.
Did see Val.
Who else Definitely we got in here tonight? Jake M with the super chat earlier. We have Hinky. Sam Hinky hanging out right now. Hinky? What's up? Tom Jackson in the building as always.
What up, Tom?
KAG 1960.
Oh.
It's a good year. I believe that was the year my father was born, 1960. Bernard McCoy hanging out with us. Who else we got in here? Andre Mack, who was very upset about Joel not playing tonight.
What up, Dre? It'll be all right.
We can have disagreements amongst
Wembenyama
friends.
On Monday.
T. Harris, not to be confused with 12.
Correct.
chillaxing.
You really should fix that name though. Like maybe just put the full tie in there.
Rose Nyland hanging out.
I
says,
wouldn't want to be confused. That's all I'm saying.
Ike O hanging out with us. What
up,
to
Mike?
Ike?
else we had?
Yeah, it's Sir Schmooey just hanging out with us.
Saw Sal in there.
Sal was in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guys, I'm out of juice. I'm out of breath.
That's
I'm out
all
of
right.
usable voice. Thank you everyone for being here. If you're still here and you somehow have not subscribed to the channel, I don't know what you're doing. Please also hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live, and hit the thumbs up to help us in the algorithm, but also to say thank you to super producer Bree, who's here for all of it along with us. We will see you guys Monday for Sixers Spurs.
Eagles win?
Embiid,
Eagles
Wemby,
win.
hopefully.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Let's
Good night.
hope so.
Get home safe.
See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.